Hello Ma'am Corteza, hello classmates. My name is Michael G. Fabian from BSN English 2B. Today I'm going to discuss the topics or the content in Literature 1 Week 2 module. This time I'm going to discuss the history of children's literature focusing in the Middle Ages. The Middle Ages saw the emergence of several literary works that were targeted towards children. Although the concept of children's literature did not exist as it does today, stories and folk tales were an integral part of entertainment and learning for young readers. Beowulf is an epic poem from the Anglo-Saxon period, written between the 8th and 11th centuries. While not specifically written for children, it has become a classic of children's literature due to its heroic themes and adventurous storyline. The poem tells the story of Beowulf, a warrior who travels to Denmark to fight a monster named Grendel, who has been terrorizing the local population. Beowulf succeeds in killing Grendel, but later faces another challenge in the form of Grendel's mother. Beowulf ultimately emerged victorious in this battle as well. The poem explores themes such as heroism, courage, and loyalty, which have made it popular among young readers for centuries. Second is the Robin Hood. Robin Hood is a popular figure from English folklore who is believed to have lived during the 12th century. The earliest ballads and tales featuring Robin Hood date back to the 14th and 15th centuries. These tales were often targeted towards adults, but children also enjoyed them for their adventurous and exciting themes. Robin Hood is depicted as a skilled archer who steals from the rich to give to the poor. He and his band of outlaws live in the forest, where they fight against the corrupt sheriff of Nottingham and his henchmen. The tales of Robin Hood have been adapted into numerous children's books, movies, and television shows over the years, making him a beloved character among young readers. The third one is the legend of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. This is a tale that has been adapted and retold many times throughout history, particularly in children's literature. It originated in medieval England as an oral tradition and was later written down by Geoffrey of Monmouth in his History of Kings of Britain. Over time, the story evolved and grew in popularity, particularly in the 19th century, when writers like Alfred Lord Tennyson and Thomas Malory created their own versions of the tale. These adaptations helped to cement the legend of King Arthur as a beloved theme in literature, particularly for children. One of the most famous and influential adaptations of the story is The Once and Future King by T.H. White. This novel, published in 1958, which tells the story of Arthur's early years and his eventual rise to power as the King of England. It is a classic of children's literature and has been adapted into several films and television shows. Other notable works of children's literature that drew upon the legend of King Arthur include The Sword in the Stone by T.H. White, The Mist of Avalon by Marion Zimmer Bradley, and the King Arthur Trilogy by Rosemary Cutcliffe. These stories have helped to keep the legend of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table alive for centuries and have captured the imaginations of young generations of young readers. Now I am going to describe the ABC books, horn books, and chapbooks. ABC books, also known as alphabet books, are a type of children's book that is designed to teach young children the alphabet. Each page typically features a letter of the alphabet, along with an illustration and a word or phrase that begins with that letter. The illustrations may be simple or complex and may include both real imaginary objects. ABC books have been a popular form of children's literature for centuries, with examples dating back to the 15th century. Hornbooks were an early form of educational tool used to teach children to read and write in Europe and North America from the 16th to 19th centuries. They were made of a wooden paddle with handle, onto which was fixed a printed sheet of paper or parchment. The sheet would typically contain the alphabet, some prayers or religious texts, and perhaps some simple word or phrases. The sheet was then covered with a thin layer of animal horn to protect it from wear and tear. Horn books were an important precursor to the modern textbook and were widely used in schools and homes. The third one is chapbooks. Chapbooks were a type of popular literature that flourished in Europe in the 17th and 18th centuries. They were small, cheaply produced booklets that were sold on street corners and in markets. Chapbooks contain a wide variety of material, including folktales, ballad songs, poems, and stories, often with illustrations. They were aimed at a broad audience, including both adults and children, and were often used as a way to disseminate news and information. Chapbooks were an important precursor to modern paperbacks and helped to democratize access to literature. This time, I am going to discuss the Renaissance period by pointing out the most important events that led to the development of children's literature. The Renaissance period was a time of great cultural, scientific, and artistic advancement in Europe, spanning roughly from the 14th to the 17th century. While there were many important events and trends that contributed to the development of children's literature during this period, the following are some of the most significant. Number 1, the invention of the printing press. The printing press was invented by Johannes Gutenberg in the mid-15th century and revolutionized the production and dissemination of written materials. This made it easier and cheaper to produce books, including children's books, and helped to increase literacy rate across Europe. Number 2, the growth of humanism. Humanism was a cultural and intellectual movement that emphasized the value of education and the study of classical texts. This led to a renewed interest in children's education and the development of instructional texts and children's literature. Number 3, the emergence of fairy tales. Fairy tales began to be collected, recorded, and published during the Renaissance period, particularly in Germany and Italy. These stories were often seen as valuable for their moral and educational content, and they helped to shape the development of children's literature. Number 4, the influence of the Protestant Reformation. The Protestant Reformation, which began in the early 16th century, emphasized the importance of reading and interpreting the Bible for oneself. This led to the production of religious texts, including children's Bibles that were intended to be read and understood by young readers. Number 5, the development of the novel. While the novel as a form of literature did not fully emerge until the 18th century, the Renaissance period saw the development of early forms of the novel, such as the picaresque novel and the pastoral romance. These literary forms helped to pave the way for the development of the modern novel, including children's novels. Overall, the Renaissance period was a time of great innovation and creativity in literature, and many of the trends and development that emerged during this period helped to shape the development of children's literature in the centuries that followed. Once again, I am Michael G. Fabian, and thank you for watching this video.